Voodoo, Haiti and the West African Dahomey roots. A complete theological system, beliefs, rituals, and traditions. Not voodoo. Not Hollywood. Not horror. A complete sacred tradition that survived the Middle Passage, survived slavery, survived the Haitian Revolution, survived 2 centuries of persecution. The Lois are not demons. They are divine forces with specific personalities, specific domains, and specific ways of working with human beings. Samedi governs death and transformation. Erzulie Freda governs love, beauty, and abundance. This tradition would feel immediately familiar to any Haligric practitioner. Personal Reading Series May 2026 Haligric IQ Productions. Contents. Introduction, what Voodoo actually is. Part 1, Historical Roots, Dahomey, Fon, and You. Part 2, The Middle Passage and Haiti. Part 3, The Haitian Revolution and the Role of Voodoo. Part 4, Voodoo Cosmology, Bondi, the Law, and the 2 words. Part 5, The Law, Structure, Families, and Nations. Part 6, The Rodent Nation, the Cool, Ancient Law. Part 7, Legba, Guardian of the Gateway. Part 8, Marisa, the Divine Twins. Part 9, Loco and Izizen, the First Hangan and Mombo. Part 10, Erzulie Freda, Law of Love, Beauty, and Abundance. Part 11, The Ogu Nation, Iron, War, and Sacred Justice. Part 12, The Ged Nation, Death, Sexuality, and Sacred Comedy. Part 13, Samedi and Maman Bridget. Part 14, The Petu Nation, Fire, Speed, and the New World Powers. Part 15, The Vev, Sacred Diagrams of the Law. Part 16, Voodoo Ceremony, the Complete Structure. Part 17, The Horse and the Rider, Spirit Possession in Voodoo. Part 18, The Altar and the Sacred Objects. Part 19, Initiation, Kanzo and the Path of the Law. Part 20, The Parastyle, Sacred Space of the Community. Part 21, Healing, Magic, and the Hangan/Mombo. Part 22, Voodoo and Catholicism, the Syncretic Survival. Part 23, Haitian Voodoo Today. Part 24, Haligric Convergences. Introduction. Let us begin with what Voodoo is not, because the distortion is so severe and so consequential that clearing it away is the prerequisite for understanding anything at all. Voodoo is not voodoo dolls. It is not zombie making. It is not black magic performed by evil sorcerers in Hollywood horror films. These images are racist fabrications, constructed by white supremacist colonial culture to dehumanize the Haitian people and delegitimize the only successful slave revolution in history. What Voodoo actually is, a complete, sophisticated, living theological system that has sustained the Haitian people through 400 years of suffering that would have destroyed a tradition without genuine sacred roots. It is a direct descendant of the Fon and You religious traditions of Dahomey, brought across the Atlantic through the Middle Passage, transformed by contact with Yoruba, Congo, and other African traditions in the crucible of Saint-Domingue, and further transformed by the specific conditions of Haitian history, including the adoption of Catholic elements as a survival strategy under colonial persecution, and the extraordinary spiritual power that practitioners understand as the Lord's ongoing response to their people's suffering and resilience. For Haligric, Voodoo is immediately recognizable territory. The Loa are divine forces with specific personalities and specific domains, exactly as the Orishas are. Ceremony involves drumming, sacred song, possession, altar work, communal feast, exactly as Yoruba ceremony does. The concept of the Loa riding a practitioner is one of the most documented and most precisely described forms of conscious spirit embodiment in any tradition. The ancestor relationship is central and practically maintained. The sacred art of the Vev is a direct parallel to the Haligric understanding that specific forms draw specific sacred presences. Any Haligric practitioner attending a Voodoo ceremony would recognize, immediately, that they are in sacred territory they already inhabit. Historical roots: Dahomey, Fon, and You. Voodoo did not begin in Haiti. It began in Dahomey, the powerful West African kingdom whose spiritual tradition was the primary source of what would become Haitian Voodoo. The Fon people of Dahomey and the closely related You people of present-day Togo and Ghana maintained a rich, sophisticated sacred tradition organized around the Voodoo, divine forces governing specific domains of reality. The VODOU of Dahomey. The VODOU are the divine forces of the VODOU tradition, comparable in their structure and function to the Yoruba Orishas, though arising from a distinct cultural tradition with its own specific characters, narratives, and ritual forms. The Dahomeyan VODOU are organized into specific families or nations, the Rode nation, the Nego nation, and others that would develop more fully in the Haitian context. The Kingdom of Dahomey was one of the most powerful and most sophisticated kingdoms in West Africa, and also, tragically, one of the most active participants in the Atlantic slave trade, raiding neighboring peoples and selling captives to European slave traders. Dahomey's own people were also among those captured and enslaved, the victims of raids by neighboring peoples and the general chaos of the slave trade period. When Dahomeyan captives were transported to Saint-Domingue, they brought the VODOU tradition with them. The Middle Passage and Haiti. Saint-Domingue in the 18th century was the most profitable colony in the world, a French slave colony producing sugar, coffee, and indigo through the labor of approximately 500,000 enslaved Africans under conditions of extraordinary brutality. The enslaved population was drawn from multiple West and Central African peoples, Fon, Yoruba, Congo, Monde, and others, whose diverse sacred traditions were thrown together in the brutal mixing bowl of the plantation. The synthesis under slavery. Under slavery, the African sacred traditions could not be practiced openly. The French colonial authorities banned African religious practice, and Catholic baptism was mandatory. But the sacred traditions did not die, they went underground, they adapted, and they synthesized. Practitioners from different African traditions recognized the common elements in their diverse systems: spirit possession, ancestor veneration, sacred music and dance, divination, herbal healing, and began the process of synthesis that will produce Haitian Voodoo. The specifically Haitian character of Voodoo, the way it weaves Dahomeyan, Yoruba, Congo, and other African elements into a coherent single tradition, with Catholic elements as a strategic overlay, is not the result of confusion or degradation. It is the result of extraordinary creativity under extreme conditions, enslaved Africans producing a sacred synthesis that could sustain a community, maintain spiritual connection, and eventually fuel the only successful slave revolution in history. The Haitian Revolution and the role of Voodoo. The Haitian Revolution was the only successful slave revolution in history, the only time that enslaved people overthrew their enslavers, defeated the military forces of 3 European powers, and established an independent nation. Haiti was the first black republic in the world. And the revolution began with a Voodoo ceremony. Bois-Cayman, the ceremony that started the revolution. On the night of August 14, 1791, in the forest of Bois-Cayman near Plaine du Nord in northern Saint-Domingue, a large gathering of enslaved people assembled for a Voodoo ceremony presided over by the Haungon duty bookman and a Mambo named Cecile Fatimon. The ceremony invoked a law in the specific form of the Peto nation, the fierce, fire-associated law associated with the New World experience of slavery, to authorize and empower the revolution. An offering was made. The law descended. The community received the sacred authorization for what they were about to do. 8 days later, the revolution began. The significance of Bois-Cayman cannot be overstated. It is the historical demonstration that Voodoo was not merely a personal spiritual practice but a communal sacred technology capable of galvanizing collective action in the face of overwhelming odds. The Loi, understood as genuinely present at the ceremony, genuinely authorizing the revolution, gave the enslaved community the sacred confirmation that what they were about to do was right, was supported by the divine powers, and would succeed. The consequence was freedom, and 2 centuries of punishment. The United States, France, and the other slave-holding powers were terrified by the Haitian Revolution's example and worked systematically to impoverish and isolate Haiti. France demanded 150 million francs in reparations, paid to the French slaveholders for the loss of their property, a debt that Haiti paid until 1947 and that effectively prevented Haiti's economic development for over a century. The United States refused to recognize Haiti until 1862. The connection between Voodoo, the revolution, and Haiti's subsequent suffering is not coincidental. It is the reason Voodoo has been so systematically demonized in the Western imagination. Voodoo cosmology Bondi, the Loi, and the 2 words. Voodoo cosmology begins with Bondi, the Haitian Creole form of the French bon Dieu, but used in Voodoo to refer to the Supreme Being, the ultimate divine reality that created and sustains all existence. Bondai is Vodou's equivalent of Olodumare in the Yoruba tradition and Olodumare's West African Dahomeyan counterpart Moolisa, the supreme, remote, self-sufficient divine being who is too complete and too immense to be directly approached by finite human beings in ordinary circumstances. Bondai and the Loi. Because Bondai is inaccessible to direct human approach, Vodou practice focuses on the Loi, the divine intermediaries who serve as the accessible faces of sacred power in specific domains of reality. The Loi are not Bondai, they are Bondi servants and expressions, operating as specific manifestations of divine power in specific areas of human and natural life. The relationship between Bondai and the Loi in Vodou parallels the relationship between Olodumare and the Orishas in Yoruba tradition, and between the Tao and its specific expressions in Taoist cosmology, a supreme reality that operates through specific, accessible intermediaries. The invisible world and the visible world. Like the Yoruba tradition's Oran and I, Vodou cosmology organizes existence into the visible world of everyday human life and the invisible world where Bondai, the Loi, and the ancestors dwell. The boundary between the visible and invisible worlds is permeable, the Loi move between them, the ancestors communicate across it, and ceremony is the primary technology for opening and maintaining the connection between them. The cosmic waters. The invisible world is specifically located beneath the water, beneath the ocean, beneath rivers, beneath the earth's moisture, in a profound cosmological parallel to the Aboriginal dreaming's location of the ancestral realm in the deep past/present, and to the Yoruba Oran's location in the spiritual dimension of reality. Water in Vodou is the medium between worlds, the Loi travel through water, ceremonies are often conducted near water, and the deepest initiatory experiences involve the symbolic descent beneath the water to the invisible world and return. Connection to Haligricity. Vodou cosmology, Bondai as the supreme and inaccessible divine, the Loi as specific accessible expressions of divine power in specific domains, the invisible world beneath the waters accessible through ceremony, is the Haitian and Dahomeyan articulation of the cosmological structure that Haligricity recognizes across traditions. The same structure appears in Yoruba, in Chinese folk religion, in the Greek mysteries, and in every other tradition that holds both the radical transcendence of the ultimate and the genuine accessibility of the sacred through specific intermediaries. Haligricity's both/an approach to the divine, honoring both the supreme source and the specific expressions, is confirmed by the Vodou tradition as the most practically effective and theologically complete approach to the sacred. The Loi structure, families, and nations. The Loi are organized into nations, families of related divine forces that share a common African ethnic origin, a common temperamental character, and a common ceremonial form. The major nations are Rhoda, Petwo, Get, and several smaller nations including Ogu, Congo, Nego, and others. Rhoda and Petwo, the fundamental division. The most important structural division in Vodou is between the Rhoda and Petwo nations, the Kul and Hot Loi. The Rhoda Loi are the ancient ones, brought from Dahomey, relatively gentle in their demands, their ceremonies marked by slower drum beats, cooler colors, and the offering of cool foods. They are the foundation of the tradition, the Loi who must be properly served before the more demanding Petwo are approached. The Petwo Loi were born in the New World, forged in the heat and fire of the slave experience, carrying the fierce energy of a people under extreme duress, demanding more intense offerings and more intense ceremonial engagement. They are not evil, they are the sacred forces that arose from the specific historical experience of Haitian slavery. Boakemen was a Petwo ceremony. The revolution was a Petwo moment. The Petwo Loi carried the ash of survival under impossible conditions. Understanding the LWA, a critical note. The Hollywood image of the Loi as demonic figures, the voodoo of horror films, is not merely inaccurate. It is a deliberately constructed racist distortion designed to delegitimize the Haitian people's sacred tradition and, through it, the Haitian Revolution's moral authority. The Loi are divine forces with specific personalities, specific gifts, specific demands, and specific ways of working with human beings. They are more similar to the Orishas, to the Bodhisattvas, to the saints of Catholic tradition, and to the Orishas in their character than to any demonic figure. A Haligric practitioner reading this guide should approach the Loi with the same respect and the same openness they bring to the Orishas, the Druidic deities, and the gods of any other tradition in the library. The Rhoda nation, the Kul, ancient Loi. The Rhoda Loi are the foundational nation of Haitian Vodou, the ancient, relatively gentle divine forces brought from the Dahomeyan homeland, whose ceremonies use the slower, cooler rhythms of the Rhoda drums, and whose offerings are characterized by pale colors, fresh water, and gentle foods. Every Voodoo ceremony begins by honoring the Rhoda law before addressing any other nation. Dambala and Aide Wedo, the Great Serpent and the Rainbow Serpent, wisdom, purity, and the cosmic order. Dambala Wedo is the Great White Serpent, the law of ancient wisdom, of the cosmic order, of the egg shape of creation itself, and of the pure, cool waters of the sky. He is one of the oldest and most revered of the Rhoda law. His consort Aide Wedo is the Rainbow Serpent, the arc of color that appears after rain, symbolizing the connection between sky and earth and the abundance that comes with proper cosmic alignment. Together, Dambala and Aide form the complementary pair that holds the cosmic order in balance. Dambala does not speak. When he manifests in ceremony, the possessed devotee moves sinuously on the ground like a serpent, making only hissing sounds. He is the lure of serenity, of clarity, of the profound stillness of deep wisdom. His offering is eggs, and his color is pure white. He is the lure that the French Catholic colonizers most systematically tried to suppress, the serpent being the most symbolically loaded target for Christian iconography. Erzulie Freda, lure of love, beauty, and abundance. Erzulie Freda is among the most beloved, most worshipped, and most complex lure in the entire Voodoo tradition. She is the lure of love, beauty, luxury, abundance, and the longing for the divine, the sacred force of feminine desire in its most complete and most heartbreaking expression. Who Erzulie Freda is. Erzulie Freda is a Rhoda lure, cool, ancient, associated with the sweetness of fresh water and the luxury of perfume, silk, and gold jewelry. She is syncretized with the Mota Dolorosa, Our Lady of Sorrows, because she weeps at the end of every ceremony. Her weeping is not sadness exactly, it is the expression of a love so vast, so total, so beyond what any human being or any material thing can satisfy, that it must overflow into tears. She loves completely, and the world is never quite enough to contain her love. This is her tragedy, and this is her power. Erzulie in ceremony. When Erzulie Freda descends in ceremony, riding one of her devotees, she is recognized immediately by her manner, flirtatious, sensuous, demanding of the finest things available. She calls for perfume to be sprayed on her body, for the finest rum, for sweet foods and flowers. She moves with languid luxury through the space, touching people's faces, accepting their gifts, smiling the smile of one who is always a little too beautiful for the world she inhabits. She receives the love and adoration of the community around her, and then, always, at the end, she weeps. The Erzulie Nation. The Erzulie Nation of Lua includes multiple aspects: Erzulie Freda, Erzulie Dontea, Erzulie La Flambeau, and others. The Erzulie Nation represents the full spectrum of feminine divine power, from the sweet love of Freda to the fierce protectiveness of Dontea, in a theological framework that honors both aspects as necessary and complete expressions of the divine feminine. Connection to Haligricity. Erzulie Freda, the lure of love, beauty, and the abundance that is always almost but never quite enough, is the Voodoo tradition's most direct articulation of what the Haligric ocean represents in Yoruba tradition, the sacred feminine as the force of love, beauty, and creative abundance. But Erzulie's specific gift to Haligricity is her weeping, the recognition that love at its most complete always exceeds what the material world can contain. The Haligric practitioner who walks with the feeling dimension knows this: genuine feeling, fully felt, is always a little larger than the vessel of ordinary life. Erzulie's tears are not failure, they are the mark of love that has not been reduced to what is manageable. The Ogo Nation: iron, war, and sacred justice. The Ogo Nation in Voodoo is the direct descendant of Ogun in the Yoruba tradition, the divine force of iron, labor, war, and the fierce justice that refuses compromise with oppression. In Haiti's specific historical context, the Ogo Nation has a particular resonance. The Haitian Revolution was an Ogo moment. The enslaved people who rose in 1791 were doing what Ogo authorizes, using iron in the service of justice against an unjust order. The Ogo aspects. Ogo Fury is the warrior Ogo, the fierce, impatient, iron-wielding force of direct confrontation with injustice. He carries his machete, wears red, and demands rum poured over his blade. He is the lure most directly associated with the revolution. Ogo Bedigri is the diplomat Ogo, strategic, patient, the force of intelligent negotiation and political skill. Ogu Shango brings the Yoruba thunder god's influence into the Voodoo Ogu family, the intersection of iron and lightning, of earthly force and celestial power. Saint James the Greater is the Catholic syncretism, the warrior saint on horseback. The Ged nation death, sexuality, and sacred comedy. The Ged are among the most extraordinary and most misunderstood of the Voodoo lore, the nation that governs death, the dead, sexuality, medicine, and the fierce, irreverent comedy that arises from the intimate acquaintance with mortality. The Ged know that everything in life is absurd when viewed from the perspective of death, and they say so, loudly, and with great theatrical flair. Why the Ged are both comic and sacred? The Ged are simultaneously the most sacred and the most profane figures in Voodoo. They speak of death and sexuality with complete openness, they mock the pretensions of the living, they make obscene jokes at the most serious ritual moments, and they are also the most powerful healers in the tradition. This is not contradiction, it is theological precision. The Ged understand what the living consistently forget, that life and death are not opposites but partners, that sexuality and mortality are both expressions of the creative force that moves through all things, and that laughter is the most appropriate response to the recognition that all human dignity, all human pretension, all human seriousness, will ultimately dissolve into the dark earth from which it came. The Ged in ceremony are immediately recognizable, they wear dark glasses, they smoke cigars, they drink rum laced with hot peppers, and they speak with extraordinary frankness about death, sex, and the absurdity of human pretension. Beran Samedi and Maman Bridget, the king and queen of the dead. Beran Samedi, master of the cemetery, death, and resurrection. Beran Samedi is the head of the Ged nation and the master of death itself, the Lord who governs the cemetery, who holds the final authority over whether a person lives or dies, and who is therefore also the supreme healer, the only one who can turn death back. He is depicted in top hat and black tuxedo, dark glasses, and white face paint. He smokes cigars, drinks pepper rum, and speaks with savage honesty about death, sex, and the human condition. Beran holds the keys to the cemetery. When someone is dying, the community petitions Beran, making specific offerings, performing specific ceremonies, to turn death away from the person's door. If Beran has already accepted the person, no healing is possible. If Beran has not yet accepted them, the proper offerings and ceremonies can persuade him to turn away. This is why Beran is simultaneously the lure most associated with death and the lure most associated with miraculous healing. The two are the same power viewed from different sides. The Petuo nation fire, speed, and the New World powers. The Petuo lore are uniquely Haitian, born from the specific experience of New World slavery, carrying the fierce, urgent, fire-associated energy of a people under extreme duress. The Petuo ceremonies use faster, more urgent drum rhythms, hot-colored offerings, gunpowder, and fire. The Petuo lore can be more demanding and less predictable than the Roda lore. They carry the intensity of a tradition forged in the heat of the worst conditions human beings have ever imposed on each other. Erzulie Freda. Erzulie Freda is the Petuo counterpart to the gentle Erzulie Freda. She is the fierce, scarred mother, syncretized with the Black Madonna of Chestechawa, whose icon shows the Virgin's face marked with parallel scars. Freda is the patroness of single mothers, of lesbians, and of women who have been betrayed or abandoned. She is also mute, she cannot speak, she communicates through cries and gestures. The tradition holds that her tongue was cut out because she knew too much. She is perhaps the most beloved of all the lore in Haiti, she who protects those who have no protection, who fights for those who cannot fight for themselves, who carries the scars of the world's violence on her face and shows that one can be beautiful through one's wounds. Met Carfo. Met Carfo is the Petuo counterpart to Roda's Legba, the fierce, night-associated version of the crossroads guardian who governs the dangerous, unpredictable aspects of divine communication. Where Legba is the gentle old man who opens the gate by day, Carfo governs the crossroads at night, where the forces that operate in darkness can come through. He requires careful, skilled handling. The tradition is specific about when and how it is appropriate to work with Carfo. The Veuve sacred diagrams of the lore. The Veuve are the most distinctive and most visually striking element of Voodoo ceremony, intricate geometric diagrams drawn on the floor of the peristyle using flour, cornmeal, ash, or powdered herbs as the specific lure is being called. Each lure has their own specific Veuve, a unique sacred diagram that is simultaneously their signature, their home in the physical world during the ceremony, and the precise geometric form that calls their specific presence. What the VODOU does. The VODOU is not decorative. It is functional, a precise technology for calling a specific sacred presence into a specific physical location. The VODOU is drawn at the base of the potomitan. When the correct VODOU for a specific lure is drawn correctly at the correct moment in the ceremony, accompanied by the correct drum rhythm and the correct sacred songs, the probability of that lure's descent is significantly increased. Legba's VODOU shows a cross with specific decorative elements, the crossroads in geometric form. Dambala's VODOU shows intertwined serpents. Erzulie Freda's VODOU is a heart with a crown and a mirror, love, royalty, and self-reflection. Samedi's VODOU shows a coffin and a cross, the cemetery and the threshold. Each VODOU is a sacred diagram of the lure's specific nature, drawn in the material world to create the conditions for the lure's presence. Connection to Haligricity. The Voodoo VODOU, sacred geometric diagrams drawn in the physical space to call specific lure presences, is one of the most direct parallels in any tradition to the Haligric understanding that specific forms draw specific sacred presences. The Haligric altar arrangement, the specific positioning of sacred objects, the use of specific colors and materials for specific sacred purposes, all rest on the same foundational recognition as the VODOU, that the physical world's organization matters, that specific forms have specific sacred resonances, and that the deliberate arrangement of the physical space is a technology for calling and sustaining specific sacred presences. The VODOU is the Voodoo tradition's most complete expression of sacred geometry. Voodoo ceremony. The complete structure. A Voodoo ceremony is a complete, multi-hour sacred event that follows a specific sequence of ritual actions organized around the invitation, presence, and departure of specific lure. It is simultaneously a community gathering, a sacred feast, a musical performance, and a genuine divine encounter, all of these dimensions operating simultaneously, all of them essential to the ceremony's completeness. The opening. Every Voodoo ceremony begins with the Catholic prayers, the Pater Noster, the Ave Maria, the Apostles' Creed, in French and Latin. This is not mere show or syncretism for its own sake. The Catholic opening is understood as honoring the protective overlay that allowed the tradition to survive, as acknowledging all the spiritual forces present, and as formally opening the ceremony space with a prayer that the entire community recognizes. The Sampwell, Secret Society opening. After the Catholic prayers, the ceremony proper begins with the invocation of Legba, the opening of the gate without which no other lure can come. The specific songs for Legba are sung, his VODOU is drawn, his offering is made. When Legba has been properly honored and the gate is open, the ceremony proceeds through the other lure in their specific order, Marisa, Loko and Izazen, Dambala, and so on through the Rhoda nation before addressing the Petwo or other nations if required. The drumming. Throughout the ceremony, the organ, the Rhoda drums, and in Petwo ceremonies the Petwo drums maintain the ceremonial soundscape. The drummers are trained specialists, they know which rhythms call which lure, how to sustain a rhythm for extended periods, how to respond to the ceremony's developing energy, and when to shift from one talk to another as the ceremony progresses. The sacred songs. Voodoo songs, called in Haitian Creole by the general term chanté lure, are specific to each lure and each ceremony context. They are sung by the congregation in call and response format, with the Hujenikan beginning each song and the congregation responding. The songs honor the lure, describe their nature and their stories, petition their blessing, and provide the sonic invitation that, combined with the drums and the VODOU, calls the lure's presence to the ceremony. The horse and the rider spirit possession in Voodoo. Lure possession, the descent of a lure into the body of an initiated devotee, is the central event of Voodoo ceremony and the most theologically precise and practically powerful expression of the tradition's understanding of the relationship between the human and the divine. The possessing lure is the rider, the devotee is the horse, Chwal in Haitian Creole. The metaphor captures both the completeness of the divine takeover and the active, trained nature of the human vehicle's preparation. The process of descent. Possession in Voodoo typically follows a specific sequence. As the ceremony reaches the moment of calling a specific lure, the correct songs are being sung, the correct drum rhythm is playing, the lure's VODOU is drawn, specific initiated devotees begin to show signs of their approach, they may tremble, they may cry out, their eyes may roll, they may stagger. These are the signs of the lure's approach. The other community members support the approaching devotee, help them to the ground or to a seat, and a Hangan or Mombo manages the transition. Once the Lwa has fully taken the devotee's body, the descent is complete when the devotee's own personality has been entirely displaced and the Lwa's personality is fully present. The community treats the possessed person as the Lwa themselves. They address the Lwa by name, they make offerings, they petition for blessing and guidance, they ask questions. The Lwa responds in character. Baron Samedi will be profane and irreverent and may diagnose illness. Erzulie Freda will be sensuous and loving and demand perfume. VODOU will be fierce and direct and may prescribe action. The validation of possession. Voodoo tradition has specific protocols for distinguishing genuine possession from performance or psychological phenomena. The most famous is the Ged test. A genuinely possessed Ged will drink the pepper rum, a mixture of rum and fresh hot peppers that would cause severe pain and potential injury to an unprotected mouth and throat, in quantity, without distress. This test, observed in Voodoo ceremony by researchers including Mayadiran, is understood as evidence that the Lwa's presence has genuinely suspended the body's ordinary physical vulnerability during the possession state. Connection to Haligricity. The Voodoo possession tradition, the most completely documented, most precisely understood, and most practically specific form of conscious spirit embodiment in any tradition, is the theological and practical confirmation of what Haligricity holds about the practitioner as sacred vehicle. The horse and rider language is the most precise metaphor available. The devotee does not become the Lwa inhabits and operates the devotee's body while the devotee's personality is temporarily set aside. This is precisely the condition of the aligned Haligric practitioner in their most complete sacred work, not performing, not pretending, not merely expressing, but genuinely making themselves available as a vehicle through which something larger than their individual personality can operate. The preparation is what makes the horse rideable. Without preparation, the Lwa may descend, but the vessel cannot contain them safely. The altar and the sacred object. The Voodoo altar is the primary material infrastructure of the tradition, the physical location where the Lwa's presence is concentrated and maintained between ceremonies, where offerings are made and received, and where the relationship between the community and the specific Lwa is sustained through ongoing material care. What the altar contains. A Voodoo altar for a specific Lwa contains specific sacred objects that are both the Lwa's material home and the material expression of the Lwa's character. Erzulie Freda's altar contains mirrors, perfume bottles, pink and gold cloth, sweet foods, and representations of hearts. Baron Samedi's altar contains a skull or crucifix, black and purple cloth, hot pepper rum, cigars, and representations of the cemetery. Dambala's altar contains eggs on white flour, pure white cloth, and cool water. The sacred objects on a Voodoo altar have been ritually prepared and activated. They are not merely decorative symbols but genuine material loci of the Lwa's presence, requiring ongoing care to maintain their function as the Lwa's home in the physical world. Connection to Haligricity. The Voodoo altar, with its specific sacred objects, each chosen for and activated by a specific Lwa, maintained through ongoing offering and care as the material home of the Lwa's presence in the physical world, is the most complete articulation in any tradition of what the Haligric ancestor altar practice is doing. The Haligric ancestor altar is not merely a memorial display. It is a genuine material locus of the ancestors' ongoing presence in the practitioner's physical space, maintained through regular offering, regular address, and the ongoing cultivation of the relationship across the threshold of death. The Voodoo tradition provides both the theological grounding and the practical model for this understanding. Initiation Kanzo and the path of the Lwa. Initiation into Voodoo is the formal process through which a person moves from the status of a sympathetic outsider or uninitiated devotee to the status of an initiated member of the Voodoo community with specific sacred obligations, specific sacred knowledge, and specific formal relationships to specific Lwa. The Kanzo process. The Kanzo ceremony involves multiple days of intensive ritual work, including periods of seclusion in the jevo, specific ritual baths and preparations, the formal reception of the Lwa's sacred objects, and the fire test, the initiate's hands passing through fire as evidence of the Lwa's protection. The Kanzo is understood as a death and rebirth. The uninitiated person dies and the initiated person is born, with a new sacred name and a new formal identity within the Voodoo community. The Haungan and Mambo. The Voodoo priesthood consists of Haungans and Mambos, both equally authoritative and both fully capable of conducting the complete range of Voodoo ceremonies and initiations. The Mambo tradition is particularly important in Voodoo. Many of the most powerful and most respected figures in Voodoo history have been Mambos, and the tradition explicitly honors female sacred authority in a way that most Western religious traditions have not. The Mambo at Bourg-Cayman, Cecile Fatimon, was a co-leader of the ceremony that launched the Haitian Revolution. The Peristyle sacred space of the community. The peristyle is the primary sacred space of the Voodoo community, a roofed, open-sided structure with a central post at its center, altars for specific lore on its periphery, and an open floor space where ceremony occurs. The potomitan is the cosmic axis, the pole that connects the visible world of the ceremony to the invisible world of the lure, the specific material object through which the lure descend when they come to ride their horses. The potomitan is decorated with a specific design, typically spiraling serpents from base to top, representing the cosmic serpent who connects earth and sky, and it is the focus of the community's ceremonies. The verve is drawn at its base, the offerings are placed near it, and the possessed devotees gravitate to it when the lure descends. Healing, magic, and the Haungan/Mambo. Voodoo healing, like Yoruba healing, like Wu shamanic healing, addresses the full spectrum of human condition: physical illness, psychological distress, social conflict, spiritual disruption, and the challenges of destiny that require divine guidance and sacred intervention. The Haungan and Mambo are simultaneously priests, healers, counselors, and community leaders. Wanga, sacred objects of power. The Voodoo healing and protective tradition includes the creation of wanga, sacred objects prepared with specific materials, specific prayers, and specific ritual procedures to accomplish specific purposes. A wanga for protection might contain specific plants, specific minerals, specific sacred writings, and the presence of a specific lure whose power is directed toward the protective purpose. The wanga is not magic in the superstitious sense, it is a specifically prepared material vehicle for specific sacred power, operating through the same principles as the Voodoo altar and the Yoruba prepared ritual objects. The boko, and the distinction from Haungan. It is important to distinguish the Haungan/Mambo from the boko, the Voodoo practitioner who works with both hands, including practices that can be used for harm as well as healing. This distinction is crucial for understanding the Hollywood Voodoo distortion. The boko represents a real but specific category of Voodoo practitioner who works with powers that the tradition recognizes as dangerous and that the mainstream Haungan/Mambo tradition does not endorse. The vast majority of Voodoo practice is healing, protection, and the maintenance of proper relationship with the lore and ancestors, not the harmful magic of Hollywood imagination. Voodoo and Catholicism: the syncretic survivor. The relationship between Voodoo and Catholicism is the most complex and most consequential syncretic relationship in the tradition. Under French colonial rule, African religious practice was outlawed and Catholic baptism was mandatory. The enslaved Africans of Saint-Domingue developed a specific survival strategy. They identified the lore with specific Catholic saints, allowing them to maintain their sacred practice under the protective cover of Catholic devotion. The Saint Lore correspondences. Legba was identified with Saint Peter. Dambala was identified with Saint Patrick. Erzulie Freda was identified with the Mota Dolorosa. Ogo was identified with Saint James the Greater. Beran Samedi was identified with Saint Gerard. These correspondences are not random, they are based on specific iconographic or theological parallels that the practitioners identified between the lore's character and the saint's image. The contemporary relationship between Voodoo and Catholicism in Haiti is complex. Many Voodoo practitioners consider themselves simultaneously Catholic, attending Mass while also participating in Voodoo ceremony. The Haitian Catholic Church has had periods of intense persecution of Voodoo and periods of grudging accommodation. The syncretic overlay remains a living feature of Haitian religious life, not a confusion but a specific historical and theological achievement. Haitian Voodoo today. Voodoo in Haiti today is simultaneously thriving and under extraordinary pressure. The 2010 earthquake, which killed approximately 220,000 Haitian people, was blamed on Voodoo by several prominent evangelical Christian figures in the United States, whose public statements triggered a new wave of anti-Voodoo sentiment both in Haiti and internationally. Voodoo was officially recognized as one of Haiti's state religions alongside Catholicism and Protestantism in 2003 under President Jean-Bertrand Aristide, a recognition that acknowledged the tradition's centrality to Haitian culture and identity. The Voodoo community continues to maintain the tradition through initiated communities of Haungans and Mambos, through the ceremonies that sustain the relationship between the living community and the lore, and through the diaspora communities in the United States, Canada, France, and the Dominican Republic. The global diaspora. Haitian Voodoo has spread globally through the Haitian diaspora, which has established practicing communities in North America, Europe, and elsewhere. The tradition continues to attract practitioners from outside the Haitian community who find in Voodoo a complete, living, theologically sophisticated sacred system that addresses genuine human needs with practical specificity. Contemporary Voodoo communities are increasingly public, organizing festivals, publishing educational materials, and asserting their tradition's legitimacy and beauty in the face of centuries of racist distortion. Haligric convergences. The law are specific dimensions of the divine. The Voodoo law, each a specific divine force with a specific personality, specific domain, specific demands, and specific gifts, is the Haitian Creole articulation of what Haligric holds about working with specific sacred presences rather than a vague, undifferentiated divine. Beran Samedi in the domain of death, transformation, and healing. Erzulie Freda in the domain of love, beauty, and abundance. Ogo in the domain of justice, honest labor, and iron. The Haligric practitioner who works with specific ancestral presences, specific elemental forces, and specific sacred relationships is operating within the same practical theology as Voodoo. The divine is structured, it operates through specific channels, and working skillfully with that structure produces results. The horse and rider, the practitioner as sacred vehicle. The Voodoo possession tradition, the devotee as the law's horse, the body as the vehicle through which the divine force operates in the physical world, is the most precisely described and most thoroughly documented expression of the practitioner as sacred vehicle principle that Haligric recognizes across traditions. The Bobo Bwa mask performer, the Wu spirit medium, the Byzantine hesychast, the Yoruba Orisha devotee, all are expressing the same fundamental possibility that the Voodoo chord demonstrates most dramatically. The properly prepared, properly initiated, properly aligned human being can become a genuine vehicle for sacred force, not merely a sincere aspirant. The Voodoo tradition is specific about what preparation requires: initiation, ongoing ritual relationship, ethical conduct, and the sustained cultivation of the relationship with the specific law. Ceremony as complete sacred practice. The Voodoo ceremony, opening with Catholic prayers, calling Legba to open the gate, proceeding through the law in their specific order with specific songs and specific drum rhythms, the vev drawn on the floor, the community gathered around the central post, the law descending and riding their horses, the feast shared and the law departing and the gate closed, is one of the most complete models of sacred ceremony in the world. Every element the Haligric rituals book works with is present: the formal opening, the invocation of specific sacred presences, the use of specific forms to call specific forces, the embodied participation of the community, the offering and feast, the formal closing. The Voodoo ceremony is the Haitian Creole confirmation that the Haligric ceremonial structure is correct. The vev and sacred geometry. The Voodoo vev, specific geometric diagrams drawn in the physical space to call specific law presences, is one of the most direct ancient expressions of the Haligric understanding that specific forms have specific sacred resonances. The Haligric altar arrangement, the specific use of colors and materials, the orientation of sacred space, all rest on the same foundational recognition as the vev. The physical world's geometric organization is not neutral. Specific forms draw specific presences. Specific arrangements sustain specific sacred conditions. The Voodoo tradition has worked with this principle for centuries, producing a library of specific forms for specific sacred purposes that is unmatched in its precision. The Bois Cayman recognition. The Haitian Revolution's origin in a Voodoo ceremony, the Bois Cayman gathering where the law authorized the uprising against slavery, is the most dramatic historical confirmation of what Haligric holds about the relationship between sacred practice and transformative action in the world. The law did not merely offer spiritual comfort to people suffering under slavery. They authorized, empowered, and sustained the most audacious act of collective liberation in history. Sacred practice is not an alternative to action in the world. It is the source of the deepest action's authorization, its sustenance, and its ultimate ground. The Haitian Revolution happened because sacred ceremony told the community that what they were about to do was right. Ash. The survival as sacred teaching. Voodoo's survival, through the Middle Passage, through centuries of slavery and persecution, through the demonization campaign that continues today, is one of the most powerful testimonies in the global sacred tradition to the resilience of genuine sacred knowledge. The tradition that Beran Samedi governs is the one that Beran Samedi himself demonstrated through the survival of the Haitian people. Death has no final authority over what is genuinely alive. Voodoo is alive. It survived because it is true, because it addresses genuine human needs with genuine sacred power, and because the Lord themselves sustain it through the people who refuse to let it die. This is the teaching: genuine sacred practice cannot ultimately be destroyed. It goes underground. It changes form. It rises. Fok ni really legba poli louvribe e. We must call legba to open the gate. Haitian Voodoo ceremonial opening. The gate is open. The Loi come when they are properly called, in the proper form, by the properly prepared community. Erzulie Freda weeps because her love is too vast for the world. Beran laughs because he knows how the story ends. Ogo's machete is raised not in conquest but in justice. And the ceremony continues, as it has continued, without interruption, across the Middle Passage and through 2 centuries of persecution, because the law are real and the tradition is alive. Grand Rising. Personal Reading Series Haligric IQ